to this news conference on our efforts to invest American Rescue Plan state and local fiscal recovery funds right here in our community. This historic legislation has provided critical support to communities across the country, including ours here in Lincoln and Lancaster County. And I'm joined by city and county officials and other community leaders, some of whom are with us and were participants on the committee who could be here this afternoon and who have been essential partners in this process. Their work helps us determine how best to allocate this funding and has already resulted in strategic community-wide investments in job training for workers and employers, for small business stabilization, strengthened infrastructure, and equitable public health initiatives. This plan between our city and county to distribute these American Rescue Plan funds has been instrumental in helping us meet the immediate and critical needs of our community and our neighbors. And at the same time, this legislation not only has helped us meet immediate needs, it's helped us invest in and plan for our future, which is why we're here today. This afternoon, we are announcing the recipients of almost $5 million in tourism support grants from our allocation of American Rescue Plan funding. The purpose of these grants is to help nonprofit tourist organizations recover from revenue losses during the pandemic and to support their continued operations. Before I go any further, I just want to thank our hosts at History Nebraska and acknowledge them as one of our community's very vibrant tourist attractions. The Nebraska History Museum brings life to 12,000 years of our history through amazing stories and fascinating exhibits. And exhibits like the award-winning one all around us, which commemorates the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment through stories of the many Nebraskans who fought for women's suffrage. If you haven't yet been here to see it, you've got 2 more months, so I hope you'll stay and have a look around. Non-profit tourism organizations like History Nebraska do great things for our community. They add value to the local economy. They provide our residents and visitors with shared experiences and cherished memories that make Lincoln an even stronger community and a more attractive destination. Simply put, they bring us joy. Today's announcement is about helping to ensure these organizations can continue to fulfill these vital roles and supporting them on their road to renewal. And after careful evaluation of each application to our tourism grant program, our committee selected 15 eligible local nonprofit tourism organizations to receive nearly $5 million in grant funding. And this funding will enable our organizations to recover from some of their pandemic losses and to be in a stronger position to hire staff and stage the shows and festivals, exhibits, sporting events, and educational programs that make our community a vibrant one for residents and visitors alike. And the 15 recipients are the Lead Center for the Performing Arts, the Nebraska Repertory Theater, Camp Creek Antique Machinery and Threshing Association, Incorporated, the Flatwater Shakespeare Company, Friends of Woods Tennis, Incorporated, History Nebraska Foundation, History Nebraska, Lancaster County Agricultural Society, Incorporated, the Lincoln Arts Council, Lincoln Calling, the Lincoln Children's Museum, the Lincoln Children's Zoo, the Lincoln Sports Foundation, the Luck Center for the Arts, Midwest Racers Organization, Inc., and the Museum of American Speed. One of our key partners in the grant selection process is Lancaster County Commissioner Deb Shore, and I'd like to invite Commissioner Shore now to come up and say a few words about the important role that these nonprofit tourist organizations play right here in our county.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good afternoon. Lancaster County was proud to partner with the city in this grant allocation process, and I want to thank my fellow Commissioner Rick Vest for being an active participant, as well as my friends here from the Lincoln City Council. I also want to express gratitude to those of you on the front lines. When the pandemic hit, it first impacted our restaurants, our hotels, our museums, our attractions, and our sports and art partners. You went from dozens and hundreds of visitors every day to, as it is, crickets, to quiet. And then you had to think outside the box. Had to try new ways of doing business. And one of the words most commonly used during the pandemic was pivot, and that's what each of you did. Finding a new way to do business, a new way to provide services. You took it to the airwaves, you took it to the TV stations, you took it to the streets. You did everything to continue to enrich the lives of those in this community during very difficult times. These funds were intended to replace the dollars that you all lost as a result of not having people coming through the doors, people not paying dues due to their financial situations, and of course fundraising events that were canceled left and right. So these funds are there to help you recover those costs. And as with any grant allocation process, there is never enough money to go around. So each of you didn't receive all that you asked for, and sadly there were organizations that did not receive any. So the debate was very vigorous at times, but we did come to a consensus and are proud to be here to make that announcement today. Lincoln is on pace to be exactly where we were in 2019, and that means our community is recovering more quickly than most everyone else across the country, and that says a lot about that Lincoln and that Midwest work ethic that we've come together to get right back to where we were, even better than before. And each one of these tourists that comes to enjoy, like I said, the attractions, the restaurants, and stay in our hotels, pays that lodging tax. And it is the obligation of Lancaster County in consultation with the Visitor Promotion Committee and the Visitor Improvement Fund to return those dollars back, to improve all of these attractions. And again, just to continue that cycle forward, better attractions, better events, brings more and more people in. So again, thank you for the work that you all did during very difficult times, and brighter days are ahead, and I know these funds will be put to great use. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shore, and I do want to thank by name each member of the committee, Commissioner Deb Shore, Councilman Tom Beckius, Councilman Benny Shobe, Commissioner Rick Vest, and while she can't be here with us today, also Councilwoman Jane Raybold. They did the hard work and the heavy lifting, and I also want to thank Grace Wilnard for the support that she provided to the committee to make this process possible. Next up, we are joined this afternoon by History Nebraska Executive Director Tyler Baca, and I'd love you to come up and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everybody, to the Nebraska History Museum, and thank you as well for choosing History Nebraska to host this historic press conference. For many nonprofit organizations in our communities, the impacts of the pandemic are still being felt, whether it's through attendance numbers that haven't fully recovered, budgetary holds that are holding organizations back, or perhaps most frustrating, special projects and programs that are still waiting to be picked back up, finished, and delivered to the community for your enjoyment. Today, we're standing in one example of the pandemic's impact. This exhibit, Votes for Women, would not be here right now if not for the pandemic. It would have been replaced by another exhibit already. But because the exhibit is still here, the pandemic has actually offered History Nebraska an opportunity to pair this exhibit with another very special exhibit from the National Geographic folks. That exhibit's titled Women, A Century of Change. And like our own Votes for Women exhibit, Women, A Century of Change was created to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. By pairing these two incredible exhibits together, History Nebraska offers museum goers the opportunity to engage with the last 100 years of the women's movement at the local, state, and national level. The National Geographic exhibit is just one example of the rich and incredible programming these awards will help our nonprofit organizations within this community provide. In December, both this exhibit and the Women, a Century of Change exhibit will leave this museum. And one more visible impact of the pandemic will be gone. And thanks to our wonderful city and county leaders and the funds being awarded today, some of the invisible impacts will be alleviated as well. So, on behalf of the History Nebraska Foundation, History Nebraska, and all our peers are receiving awards today, I want to thank you, Mayor Gaylor Baird, and our leaders of Lincoln and Lancaster County for recognizing the incredible value that our organizations provide to the city of Lincoln and the state of Nebraska. We at History Nebraska and the History Nebraska Foundation look forward to continuing to fill our important role within the fabric of the Lincoln community as we work together to ensure our history is collected, preserved, and made open to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tyler, and congratulations to you and all our winners. One of our closest partners and best advocates in promoting local tourist attractions is the Lincoln Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I'd like to invite Executive Director and Vice President Jeff Mall to say a few words.
Thank you. Whew. Does this feel good or what? I mean, it feels good. Tourism partners, give yourself a round of applause, please. It's been a long time coming, and I have never had a chance to publicly thank city and county government, the mayor, everybody standing behind me, all of you for the amazing amount of support in our industry. The phone calls, the emails, the hugs, the knuckle busting, whatever we called it back then. We all got behind one another, and tourism means a ton to me. I've done this for 20 years. I would always tell people it would always be some sort of weird thing that would stop tourism. Another 9/11, economic downturns. But could any one of us have predicted a pandemic? Not in our lifetime, no way. But the support of everybody behind me and all of you, we made it through. We got to today. There's a lot of smiling faces in this room. I see people in the back of the room that we've been working together for a long time. Amy and your staff, everybody, all of you, we keep doing what is right for Lincoln. So thank you, thank you, thank you. With tourism industry vibrancy solely relying on visitors from outside Lincoln and Lancaster County, shutdowns and travel restrictions as a result of the pandemic forced many to shut down or furlough completely. For many, their pre-pandemic business model and budget will be forever altered. Tyler, you mentioned that. At the peak of the pandemic, and without annual conferences that put feet in the sheets, Deb, right? We've always talked about our industry terminology. Youth sports and university athletics occupancy at hotels dropped to a citywide low of 27.4% in April of 2020. That's low. And that's citywide. So you got to figure a lot of those folks were on the bottom end of that. And we had a few that were just barely above 27.4%. And that continued a long way into 2020. As a result of little or no travel and hotel stays, our attractions industry, for the most part, shut down completely. We all went through it together. That shutdown, and without revenues for many months, delayed expansions, and we'll see annual operating budgets issue year after year, trying to catch up from the downturn. These grant awards and the accompanying return to travel by many signifies how indeed we are better together, both as a community working alongside our great partners in the community, but traveling and enjoying one another once again, whether it's a hug, whatever it is, we just get to be and do what we were meant to do, and that's get out and travel. Again, thank you to the mayor, our city and county government, and the citizens of Lincoln for recognizing the value of tourism on our economy. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And I just want to echo the sentiments of so many who've spoken today about what your organizations mean to our community. And even as you were dealing with the hardships and having to pivot and find new ways to deliver programming and services, you were helping other people survive the pandemic, even with all the challenges you faced. And we want to really acknowledge that. And we're so grateful to be able to do something to give back to you. And I just want to add as we close that from the acrylic on an artist's paintbrush to the Zydeco Band at a music festival, Lincoln's nonprofit tourism organizations span and reflect our dynamic and welcoming community. And with these grants that the organizations receive today, they will be able to offer residents and visitors a richer canvas and a bigger stage to experience Lincoln, Nebraska. I'd like everyone to please check out the website. Visit lincoln.ne.gov/ARP for more details about how we are investing these important dollars to benefit our city and county communities. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions from the media.
Mayor, how was that process? What did you guys go through to determine who got what money and how much they got?
Thank you for the question. How did we go through this process? I'll just start, and others can speak to it, but I would mention that we were trying to move as quickly as possible in our first round of tourism applications with the initial guidance from the American Rescue Plan. We got the final rules and we had to pivot ourselves and do another round of applications. So we're really grateful for the patience of our tourism organizations. We identified tourism nonprofits as organizations that were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and opened up a pretty streamlined application process for them, at which point our committee did really the heavy lifting. They looked through, identified which organizations were eligible, and then kind of looked at how they were impacted in terms of what kinds of constraints they experienced and what kinds of funding support they got from other sources in terms of relief. Does anyone else want to add to those comments?
I think the one word is negotiation. We had, as I mentioned before, not any entity received all they had asked for, and there were some, as the mayor said, that weren't eligible under the guidelines. So it was a lot of back and forth between the committee members, strong feelings on all sides about how various entities were impacted. I'll use the zoo for an example, talking about, they had to shut their doors, but still had to feed the animals. Those fixed costs didn't go away. So that's just one example of maybe the many factors and how each entity was impacted that we took into consideration.
How many applications did you get?
Oh, great. 21.
And were the awards based on the losses, or did they have to tell you how they were going to, maybe using it for new projects, or?
We were looking to replace lost revenue during an approximate 6-month time period. But no, there was no, at least to my knowledge, no specifics required on how the funds were going to be used other than to replace revenue that was lost.
Are there restrictions on the organizations that are receiving money as to where what they can spend that money on?
Anyone who works in nonprofits and has ever had to write a grant to try to pay for your coworkers' salaries knows that the hardest thing to cover are operating expenses. And we very intentionally made these dollars available for ongoing operating expenses, so that if we could provide some relief and stabilization through providing operating expenses, that may allow these organizations to do a new exhibit or bring in a new act or a new event. But we didn't require them to do something new and innovative. We said, we know you've suffered. We're going to come in and support you, your foundational needs. Any other questions?
How do you think the organizations you guys selected reflect the diversity of Lincoln?
I mean, we've got everything from the Children's Museum and our youngest kids benefiting, and the Children's Zoo, to the Museum of Speed, to the Ag Society, who does the Lancaster Events Center, to the arts. I mean, this is a broad spectrum of how we really show those who are interested in wonderful experiences, whether they live in Lincoln or come from far away, but the things that really are compelling across a wide variety of interests. And we're so pleased to be able to support sports, arts, entertainment, and attractions like this. Anyone else want to?
Go ahead.
The city.
Yeah, go ahead.
You talk about diversity, also geographic diversity. We did, one of the grants went to Camp Creek Threshers, which is outside of the city limits and provides kind of educational, agricultural programming as well as entertaining events. So there's that kind of diversity as well.
Do you guys feel like these negotiations kind of show even legislatures, that there is common ground and there is ways to work together, even if you're on different sides of the political spectrum?
Let's all jump on that one.
If you want to find out what people are made of, let's put 5 diverse, passionate, intelligent people in a room with a limited amount of funding and a double or triple the request for that funding. Yes, there were passionate discussions. Yes, nobody got exactly the list they wanted. When this is done, nobody could say that every dollar amount's right where I wanted to go. But we did work together, and we did, despite some differences, come out with an outcome that adequately reflects our community and the funding that's needed to keep our community growing strong. I'm very honored to have served with my city council members and the mayor's, the mayor's the one who gave us the opportunity to do this, and I'm grateful to hear, and always a pleasure to work with Commissioner Shore. So yes, there was differences, but I think it was a great role model for people putting aside differences and pulling together. And I stand by what we came out with. I'm very grateful.
Any other questions? Well, seeing none, I would just ask that we all give a round of applause to our recipient organizations and congratulate them not only for their awards, but for all they do to make Lincoln, Nebraska and Lancaster County an amazing place to visit and live.
Yeah. Thank you.